I am super frustrated right now. I've just spent the better part of the morning working indoors, working on a project, looking at the quality of my work, and as I'm coming to a realization, the work I've done is absolute garbage. You see, the project I'm working on this week is I have this space inside our house that's been unfinished for years. For a while, we were thinking about turning it into like a spare apartment or an Airbnb rental, but eventually we came to the conclusion that we didn't want to do that, and what we decided to do is I was gonna use that space as extra office space for me here on the farm. You see, these days, a very real issue I'm starting to come to terms with is the fact that I am outgrowing my space here on the farm. And I don't mean like out here on the farm, like the physical land part of the farm. I mean like inside our farmhouse. You see, for the last couple of years, I have been running a home-based business outside of our farmhouse. And especially in the last 12 months, I've really ramped up the number of things I'm doing from inside the farmhouse. I'm writing a ton, I'm editing a lot of videos, we're selling a ton of different things through our website. I'm making products like soap and dog treats from inside the house in the kitchen. And quite honestly, at this point, I'm starting to drive my wife nuts with the use of space around the house. You know, I'm a very messy, cluttered, ADHD type of person, and so that means I have piles of stuff and things scattered all over the house as I work on different farm projects or farm business projects around the house. And so a few weeks ago, my wife and I both agreed that it would be for the best if I would take some time this winter and take this empty space that had really just been cluttered up with a bunch of junk, refinish it, and then I could use it as an office space for me here on the farm. In doing that, what would happen is I would ultimately be able to have both the space in the house that I'm using today as an office, as well as this new space. And I can have one space that's more for just editing and writing and doing like computer type work. And this new space could be used for a lot of my project type work or sending out mailings or shooting videos. You know, all the types of things that I do a lot on the regular around here on the farm. We had originally talked about trying to hire the job out and do it with like the help of like a contractor or even just a handyman. But it is really hard to hire folks out in these parts to do that type of work. And so by virtue of the fact that it's my project, I became the handyman of default. The only problem with all of that is I'm just not all that competent when it comes to carpentry. Like, I've built a handful of structures over the years, but for the most part, they've been dog barns and chicken coops. And they don't really seem to need the finesse and like fine woodworking skill that good inside carpentry requires. And so as I've been inside working on this project pretty much the entire morning, I was really hopeful that the work I was doing would be paying some good results. But at lunchtime, I took a little stop and assessment of how I was doing, and my work product has been absolute garbage. Come on, dogs, let's go get some eggs. Let's go. You see, my plan was I wanted to do a bunch of shiplap. Like, this room was actually one of the structures that connected my barn to the house when our house and barn were connected. And so my vision was I actually took shiplap almost exactly like what I have out here. And I was gonna panel up all of the walls inside this room with that shiplap. You like pecking at my feet, huh, girl? It's really nice of you. Thank you. But now the problem with this idea is the wood, and at least the shape of this room, it's a little bit quirky. Like, the beams don't always sit right and they're a little bit out of square. And so what happens is when I go to put the shiplap up, it gets all out of joint, and the overlapping lip edges that it has inside there, they look kind of cockeyed. And I now feel like I just wasted 4 hours of a morning working on a project that looks like absolute dog doo-doo, and I'm completely limited by my own skill set, and I am so gosh darn frustrated. Like, I swear, as I finished up the work for the morning and stepped back and looked at everything I did, I kind of wanted to cry. Hey, would you look at that? Molly Murder Mittens is hanging out inside the hoop coop. She doesn't usually tend to do that, but I don't know, she snuck over here earlier today. It's probably because it's one of those snowier days, and so she probably wanted to get out of the snow and hang out inside the birdhouse, which is kind of what I did. I mean, that's why I opted to start working on this project today, because number one, I finally had all the materials, and number two, it was not a day I wanted to be outside working on stuff. And so yeah, I decided to just have a sandwich, chill out, and now just came outside to like mess around with the animals and take a breather because I am so gosh darn frustrated. And sometimes when I'm really frustrated, I find a diversion is the best thing for my mental health. Excuse me, ladies. Hey, we got 3 eggs today. Not bad. And yes, for those who wonder, I am back to eating eggs pretty much full time again. And quite honestly, even me flipping on the camera here to record this video and talk to you guys is a form of me trying to both, number one, stall and not go back to the hard project that's making me really frustrated. And number two, give myself a pep talk and try to motivate myself to get back to work. I mean, in all seriousness, I feel like this is actually an important skill to have when you're working on a farm or a homestead. The ability to sort of get yourself reframed and remotivated after finding a frustration point. Because believe me, you get frustration points all the time. The weather doesn't cooperate. You have a mechanical failure. An animal just mysteriously gets sick. Like, those frustrations are totally a regular, normal thing about having a farm and a homestead. And it's not so much about finding ways to make sure that those things never happen, because that's almost virtually impossible. The reality is you need to find a way to get yourself motivated and back in the game. I don't know if you guys can see this, but I just noticed we have a predator trying to sneak into the hoop coop. Excuse me, miss, would you like to come inside? Yes, Ginny Barncat decided to come in and join the party. Ooh, Abby sees these eggs and she's being on her bestest behavior. Ginny doesn't really care for eggs. She would much rather just spend her time on my shoulder than anything else. Isn't that right, sweetie? I do have to admit though, I do feel very lucky to have the ability to, number one, just have the time to work on this stuff. And number two, be able to take 15, 20 minutes and come outside and give myself a little bit of a mental pep talk before getting back to work. And so I don't know, I figured I would just come back out here and spend some time with my animals. You know, lately I've been thinking a lot about the farm and what my farm plans are for the year and where I want to focus my time. And one of the things I'm coming to as a conclusion is really thinking about the lottery question. It's this question I often ask myself saying, hey, if I were to win the lottery tomorrow and money no longer becomes an issue or a limiting factor of any sort, I have no need to think about my financial security, what would I do and how would I spend my time? And whenever I ask myself that question, the answer really becomes, I would run my farm and I would make videos about my farm. Like, those two things working together are like the two things that make me happiest in terms of vocation in life. But lately, as I've thought about that question, what I've started to come to terms with also is the fact that, and I really don't quite know how to put this, I think I need to answer that question with more specificity, because the topic of running my farm is a very broad thing and that can encompass a lot of different activities. And when I really think about it, it's doing my regular chores and taking care of my animals that becomes like a big part of number one. And then I also like to work on like building projects and making things, you know, like working with Alfred to construct this hoop coop last year. Like, that was probably one of my favorite projects of the year. And when I think about what I want to do in 2023, it's doing more of that type of stuff that really has me interested and jazzed. But admittedly, there's other types of projects that I'm less enthusiastic about. And so when I think about the design of my farm and the long-term elements of the business of my farm, I very much am considering like, what activities specifically do I want to spend more time on, and how do I eliminate the things that I don't want to spend the time on? For anybody else who's thinking about their farm and homestead plans of 2023 as the weather thaws out and you get to your growing season, whatever it may be, I strongly encourage you to also think about that question and how you would answer it. And just know that you're going to often find that certain parts of the bigger activity can be frustrating and disappointing, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't grit through it and get it done. And for me right now, this office project, it is a perfect example of it. Like, I love being in the zone and having my headphones on and listening to an audiobook and working away on building this thing. And I have such a dream and vision for what this space is gonna ultimately look like and the activities I'll be able to do inside of it and how I'm gonna really enjoy it. And I think you guys are gonna really enjoy it too. But I also know if I wanna get there, I'm just gonna have to suck it up and get to work. And so what I think I'm gonna do is take these eggs, head on inside, make myself a nice lunch, and then get back to it. So thanks for listening to me whine, you guys. I'll be back again real soon with another video, and I hope you have a great day.